Nancy Pelosi, a California Democrat representative and the first woman to serve as Speaker, announced today that she will retire from Congress 2 years after stepping down from House leadership. She's represented San Francisco for nearly 40 years and made a highly produced video address to her constituents saying that she would not be seeking re-election.
I say to my colleagues in the House all the time, no matter what title they have bestowed upon me, Speaker, Leader, Whip, there has been no greater honor for me than to stand on the House floor and say, I speak for the people of San Francisco. I have truly loved serving as your voice in Congress, and I've always honored the song of St. Francis, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, the anthem of our city. That is why I want you, my fellow San Franciscans, to be the first to know. I will not be seeking re-election to Congress. With a grateful heart, I look forward to my final year of service as your proud representative.
Well, somebody who might be seeking that re-election joins me now, Saikat Chakrabarti. Welcome. Let's talk about this momentous day, not just for the passing of the baton from someone like Nancy Pelosi, but somebody like you being there to receive it. So how did you feel when you heard the news today?
I watched the video that you talked about, and I was really touched. I think it was kind of this beautiful love letter to San Francisco. And it really made this point about how San Francisco has always been synonymous with innovation and with the future. And not just when it comes to like the tech scene and startups, but also when it comes to progress in our society. I always talk about this as well, how whenever the country is not moving to do something right, San Francisco has always been the home of movements that fight to fix what the country's getting wrong, right? We really push. And I'm talking about things like the longshoremen's strike in 1934 that unionized the West, right? The disability rights movement, the gay rights movement, sanctuary city policies. A lot of this stuff started right here. And, Nancy Pelosi herself, when she first went into Congress, she was such a fearless leader and really a voice calling on the country to do something about the AIDS epidemic, which was devastating the city at that time. And through her kind of willingness to fight, her willingness to be courageous, she got real money back into district. She really did something about that. And I think it's an incredible legacy. And I think, looking at that video, the other thing that struck me is just how rare it is for people to step down like that. And I think that's really an act of leadership as well, for her to recognize that she was the voice and the face of this, the past 40 years in our politics, really. She really shaped that politics. And maybe it's time for her to step down now and pass the torch. And I really respect that.
You didn't want to go the way of Dianne Feinstein, maybe, which was more of a sad ending in a way. And Dianne Feinstein could have maybe protected her own legacy if she had have stepped down a little earlier. Nancy Pelosi, though, clearly, very smart, but also represents the old guard, this kind of corporate fundraising and a side of the Democratic Party that many are keen to put behind them. And certainly with the election of Zoran Mamdani as New York mayor, he started a grassroots campaign, door knocking, leaflets, phone calls, text messages, and actually got most of his funds came from the people in small donations. Is this the way that Democrats need to go in order to kind of secure a new future? I'm referring to it now as the new left. I'm sure Republicans would call it something else, but it certainly feels like a new left right now.
Absolutely. I started campaigning back in February because I think the whole Democratic Party needs to change. I've been very clear about that from day one. I've been calling for people to run all across the country. I'm calling on someone as primary Hakeem Jeffries, someone to primary Chuck Schumer. I think right now we're really at a crossroads in this party and in this country, because I think we need a party that is unequivocal on its position on standing for working people, on actually having a vision on how to build an economy that works for everybody, not just the top 0.1%. And to do that, you need to recognize that your power as an elected official is coming from people, not from money, right? So it's actually intricately tied, this issue of corporate money influence our politics and the fact that the Democratic Party can't stand for working people. So I think the only way the Democratic Party fixes itself and stands for real change is actually the only way we get that real change. And part of that has to be a politics where you are movement driven, you're energizing people, you're creating the kind of movement that Zoran did in New York And we got to do that all across the country. And then we'll have elected officials and politicians in power who see that as their source of power, and they will act accordingly as well.
You're a former chief of staff and campaign manager for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You also served as a senior operative for Bernie Sanders. It's despite what the MAGA Republicans say about socialism, and I mean, if you were listening to people like Ted Cruz in the last 24 hours on Fox referring to Zoran Mamdani as a communist and saying that, you know, the country is going to go to hell with people like him around. It's important, isn't it, though, to explain to people that the kind of politics that you and AOC and Zoran and Bernie advocate for is just normal in most civilized countries in the world. It is not radical. It is actually an entitlement that we all deserve, from whether it be universal healthcare or whether it be grocery stores that are subsidized. I mean, this is not radical stuff.
Not at all. Not at all. And, you know, it's funny that they're calling Zoran a communist now because they're realizing that the word socialist isn't going to cut it anymore. So they're trying to make him seem more radical. And I think it's lazy. Whenever I see the other side just using labels on us, it to me shows that they can't actually win on the merits of the ideas, because they can't. Because everybody knows that it makes no sense that in the richest nation in the world, we're the only one that can't guarantee healthcare to all our citizens. But somehow we have infinite money to fund wars abroad and bombs all over the country, right? It makes sense that we should just be able to have universal childcare because so many other countries do that. We should have tuition-free public colleges like they do in Germany. And it's not just about other countries. This is all going back to just the legacy of what we used to do. You know, back when we were talking about what FDR did during the 1930s and 40s and just the economy we had all the way through the 70s, we believed it was a job of government to make life better for everybody. We believed that the economy should work for people, not the other way around. And we really just sold that off. We decided around the 1980s that it's better if the corporations have the reins of our economy and they pay our politicians to keep it that way. And the result has been devastating. The result has been the shattering of the American dream. Now, children are not going to have a better life than their parents. And that is a fundamental break of the contract of being an American. And so all we're talking about is bringing that American dream back.
Let's talk to the shutdown for a minute, because we are in the midst of the longest shutdown in American history. They announced today that 40 major hub airports are going to see a reduction in services, up to 10% reduction in flights that will affect potentially 250,000 passengers. This leading into the holiday season with Thanksgiving and then Christmas around the corner. Am I allowed to call it Christmas? Yes, I think they brought that back, didn't they? Yeah. This issue that they're trying to blame on Democrats, despite the fact that it's Republicans that hold the House and hold the Senate and hold the executive and the Supreme Court, that they really are kind of trying to distance themselves from something that is entirely of their making. So how would you address this stalemate with the shutdown right now?
Look, I mean, one thing that I do wish I was seeing a bit more right now, and currently Trump is sort of losing on the shutdown messaging, let's be honest, and it's just just because it is, he's the president, people are seeing stuff falling apart. But I do wish I was seeing folks like Jeffries and Schumer and Democratic Party leadership actually proactively going out there and hammering this message. Like, I want to see Trump's numbers on the shutdown be tanking right now. But it's wild to me that the shutdown is not the number one news every single day in every newspaper that I open. I think it's really this moment where the way we win this shutdown fight is on the messaging. It's not going on the attack. It's pinning it on them every single day, making the case. I think about even the way, say, like Dick Cheney and Bush kind of convinced the country to go to war in Iraq. And the way they did, if you look at the media back then, they were on the news day and night convincing the public. That's the kind of leadership we need right now. And I think the shutdown would have ended much earlier if we had done that.
The media plays a big part in this, doesn't it? And Schumer is, he's not particularly sexy on camera, so they tend not to give him the airtime, I guess. And Hakeem Jeffries doesn't bring the kind of charisma that maybe the party needs. Mamdani does, and has consequently ridden a wave of media, but also media that he created. And this is something that AOC does very well, is that having a dialogue between the politician and the voter that doesn't rely on the media to be that kind of broadcast carrier, doing it through social media, being there whenever they turn on their phone or their computer? How do Democrats and how do you with your campaign kind of guarantee that you're always there for people?
Look, I think being an effective communicator on social media and really just new media is table stakes for being in politics right now. I think if you can't do it, it's sort of like saying you want to run for office back in the 1980s and you're not going to do TV, right? It's just, this is the way you communicate to voters now. And it's such a powerful way. And it's interesting to me that, the kinds of politics that are taking power in the Democratic Party, the sort of politics that is speaking to people directly, speaking to their concerns directly, it's sort of tied in with this new media where you can speak to people directly, where you don't have to try to convince some elite, right? You can cut through that and talk to people directly. So I think the people who are able to wield all of that together, which is what are the policies that we actually want to do? What's the actual vision we want to do? What's the messaging that'll connect with people when I talk about it? And then how to actually get on the right platforms, the social media platforms, but also I include, things like this show, independent media platforms, to make that sort of connection. People who can do that skillfully are going to be the next generation. No question about it.
We actually noticed that during the election coverage. We had more people watching us covering the election than mainstream and corporate networks. And I'm starting to see that Donald Trump's extremist policies, which are in kind of direct contrast to his own kind of policies at home, building the ballroom and the Great Gatsby party and the kind of life that he's leading privately, the golf clubs and the travel, just abducting people off the streets, going after people. Now a list apparently has been created of anybody who's un-American, which is basically anybody who's anti-Trump. And whilst that list won't be shared in the short term, it is designed to make people very nervous about being tapped or being checked in on or having ICE knock on their door. This is the stuff of Russia. This should not be the stuff of America. Finally, could you just talk to that, the idea that our freedom, something that Trump has always celebrated, supposedly, is now really under attack by the very man who rode that wave of branding in the first place?
Yeah, I think Trump won because people believed he stood for sweeping economic change. They thought he would make their lives better. He thought he would bring the price of groceries down, inflation down. And then the reality is Trump is completely failing on all of his campaign promises. So he's just going for an authoritarian coup right now. He really is. He's building up this paramilitary force because that's what ICE is. It's got the same budget as Canada's military right now, right? The fourth largest military in the world. And they're masked for a reason, and they're coming into streets and just picking people up, kidnapping people, throwing them into unmarked vans. And all this is very unpopular. He's also, everything he's doing with the ballroom, it's all unpopular stuff. And what I wish we saw right now was three things. One, we actually need to stop that coup. And when I say that, I think we need leaders who view their roles not just as legislators passing some policy. We need Democrats who are organizing civil society, because that is the bulwark against fascism. We need legislators who are, organizing law firms and universities into collective blocks to actually oppose Trump so he can't take them out one by one. But then the other piece of this, which I'm now seeing, is why aren't we sticking to some of the stuff that he's doing and really making it an issue? Making it an issue the way that the Republicans made Hunter Biden's laptop an issue. The few times we've done it, it's worked. When Chris Van Hollen went down there after Kilmar Abreu Garcia got deported, it really worked, and Trump's numbers started going down, and Garcia got out of CCOT. But then the other big opportunity right now is that going into 2026 and 2028, we have to be able to make the case. Trump's version of change did not work. It made your life worse. So what is our version that is going to work? That does include everybody in society. That's a multicultural democracy. We have to prove democracy can work to improve your lives if we want to defeat not just Trump, but Trumpism for good.
It is a very interesting point that you make, that there doesn't seem to be anyone countering the coup, at least publicly. We know people like Mark Elias are doing it behind the scenes through legal means, but publicly there isn't a face of the leadership. Nancy Pelosi announcing her retirement doesn't help, does it? Maybe step up and deal with the coup in the meantime. before as your final swan song. I don't know, but it's definitely something that Democratic leadership need to be listening to from you and from anybody who feels like there's a gap in the market to take this on. Because that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, it's not like there's nothing to do right now. There is so much to do, and all of the Republican Congress people have not been at work for weeks. They don't want to end this shutdown. They don't want to kind of get back to work. And people are going to start to notice that, if not now, certainly in a couple of weeks' time when the air traffic grinds to a halt.
And it is, I don't think it's just an opportunity. It's existential, because the way this coup is going to work is, this process of constantly making abnormal things normal, right? Like, that's how authoritarianism works. Is at first you got mass agents in the streets, and over time you just start accepting that. At first, you get Jimmy Kimmel out, but then, over time they're going to start censoring other media companies as well, and we just start accepting that as normal. And the only way to fight it is to just try to push back and keep that at bay, so it doesn't get to a point where we're not having fair and free elections by 2026 or 2028, because then it's game over. So I think it's just this daily work of pushing back on that, winning the messaging battle, winning the consciousness of the people, because that really is how we win this. And I think Democrats took this lesson from 2024. That was, we talked about how if Trump won, then we'd get the death of democracy and we lost that election. So we should never talk about authoritarianism again. Well, it's actually happening now, right? When we talked about in 2024 as a hypothetical, but now it's actually happening as unpopular. So people want fighters. That's really what it boils down to. Like, the reason the Democratic Party is polling so poorly, is not doing well, it's not even polling as well as Donald Trump, is people don't think Democrats are fighters. They don't think Democrats have competence to actually do anything. They think of the Democratic Party as a slow, sluggish, unable to do anything party, right? And that has to completely change. And you could show it right now. Right now, you could be fighting against Donald Trump and show that we're a different party.
Tell us where people can find you if they want to be part of your campaign, to donate and lend their support.
Well, you can definitely find me on every social media channel, because that is a big part of my campaign. So I'd encourage you to follow me on social media to search for my name. But you can also go to my website. It's at saikat.us, SAIKAT.us. This campaign is a massively volunteer-run campaign. We just did a rally about a month ago, and we had 800 people show up, almost a year out from the election, which is completely unheard of energy. We're running canvases. We're doing phone banking. So if you live in the Bay Area, please sign up to volunteer. Even if you live outside the Bay Area, please sign up to volunteer, because you can phone bank. And if you don't have time to volunteer, please send a few bucks our way. It all helps, because we know that if we get our message out and we actually get everyone to know about this campaign in the city, we're going to win.
I wish you all the best with it. Genuinely. Saikat Chakrabarti, for now, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.